Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See detail.
When I wake up, well, I know I'm gonna be the man who wakes up next to you. When I go out, yeah, I know I'm gonna be the man who goes along with you. If I get drunk, well, I know I'm gonna be.
Oklahoma taking a trip to Oxford, Mississippi this weekend. The Sooners will take on the Ole Miss Rebels. Ken, I'm sure you know this, but I'm just blown away because I can't remember the last time it's been by this much. Now, Oklahoma's been an underdog, but do you know what the point spread is for Saturday?
Last I checked, it was like 17.
How about 20?
It's up to 20 now.
Let me just double check real fast to make sure I'm not lying to you.
I know it opened up at 17.
I should have had that pulled up, but I didn't. Yeah, the current spread, the over-under 48.5, and the spread is Ole Miss minus 20 against the Sooners. There's not a lot of confidence anywhere in the world in Oklahoma. So I guess that's where we can start with this episode of the Sooner Nation podcast. The last time Oklahoma played Ole Miss, the only time Oklahoma ever played Ole Miss was before you were born, Caleb, the 1999 season in the Independence Bowl in Shreveport, Mississippi. The Sooners do lose that game. I think it was 27-25. Oklahoma fans are going to remember Deuce McAllister. That was kind of a good game for him. First ever on-campus meeting for the Sooners and the Rebels. But Caleb, really, I think to me, I'd love to know your take on this. To me, I feel like the game is almost a subplot because the main storyline is the offense for Oklahoma. You've got Jackson Arnold coming back at quarterback. You've got Joe John Finley taking over the play call, and you have an offense that doesn't have an identity yet. And those are the three things that really I think Oklahoma fans are going into this game looking to see. And then whatever happens in the game is just kind of a secondary notion to those three issues. I mean, that's at least the way I take it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and I'm right there behind you with it. It's you don't know. We haven't known what this offense is going to look like any week of the season, but now you definitely don't know. You have, like you said, a new play caller, a new co-offensive coordinator. Jackson Arnold's going to be back and starting, and so you really don't know what you're going to get. It's just kind of expected, low expectations, as you pointed out with the 20-point underdogs. I can't remember the last time Oklahoma was that big of an underdog. Even a double outside of the season. I know Texas opened up as double-digit favorites, but outside of that, I couldn't really remember the last time we were double-digit underdogs. And I mean, it's kind of rightfully earned to be double-digit underdogs with the way we have played on offense.
Yeah, but not just double digits. I mean, almost 3 touchdowns. And you're right. I mean, Oklahoma has earned this, and it looks like, if you're on the outside looking into this program, like if you're an Ole Miss beat writer, if you're an Ole Miss fan, you're looking at this program and you're thinking solid defense, but their offense is complete and utter chaos right now. Let's start with Joe John Finley taking over at the play calling duty for Oklahoma. Tell me one thing. Just give me one thing that you're hoping to see different in this offense from what we've seen through the first 7 games, 8 weeks of the season.
Creativity. I want to see when plays aren't working, when the offense is kind of struggling, which they're going to struggle. What does he pull out? What kind of tricks does he have up his sleeve? What does he call? How does he try to get Jackson Arnold comfortable? How
Mhm.
does he try to establish the run game? And how does he keep this offense who gets flustered really fast calm? That's something that we're gonna see what he's made out of to see if, I don't expect him to come in and win, but if, he can come in and keep this game competitive, you might feel a little bit different throughout the rest of the season. But it's just kind of see what he can do. Can he find a rhythm? Can he find an identity? And could he just kind of keep these big, disastrous plays from happening?
Yeah, and it's to me, I want them to find an identity. I've been harping on this, since last Sunday, the last episode of the podcast. I want them to find an identity. Yeah, if they run the ball 40 times, at least we know that's an identity. I mean, they lose maybe, but they run the ball 40 times. And so, okay, they're going to try to be a team that runs the football and shortens the game. Or maybe they pass for 300 yards. But Jackson Arnold has 2 interceptions. Well, at least we know they're going to be a passing team. Or maybe it's balanced. They run the ball 20 times, they throw the ball 25 times. I know they're probably going to run more than 45 snaps. I'm just saying, I want them to find an identity. I want to come away from this game as a fan. I would love to come away from this game as a win, but that really seems like a long shot at this point. But can we come away from this knowing, okay, we know going into Maine now, here's the identity of this team. Here's what they do. And we still don't know that offensively. We know that they're an opportunistic defense, right? We know that about this defense. We know they're powerful at the point of attack on this defense. We know so much about the identity of the defense. We know who the star players are. We know where the potential weaknesses are. We know everything about this defense. We know zilch about the offense. So let's come away. I mean, again, a win would be fantastic, but let's at least come away knowing this is the direction that the offense is heading in, right?
Yeah. And, it's, you have to, you have to come out of this week thinking positive.
Mm-hmm.
It's most likely going to be a loss. But, if Joe John runs out there and the offense is just as bad or worse, there's going to be a lot more complaining, a lot more groaning. There's a lot more just negativity coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just kind of when you start to see when the fan base checks out, that's when you start seeing the players check out. And I know a lot of fans are already trying to jump ship, but there's still a lot of positivity to for the future. And that's just one thing I would like to see is, this team kind of give life to, hey, things are going to be okay. We're it it's going to be okay. Just give us time to figure this out.
Yeah, and I think, you look at we talked about in the last podcast, simplify, simplify, simplify. And I think you have to simplify, but you have to simplify with a purpose, right? So,
Hmm.
for example, offensive line. We know that this offensive line is bad. I called it weeks ago. They're not going to get any better. This is what they are. This is who they are. And you had hoped that there would be some gelling. You had hoped that there would be, get a little more healthy, but then they had the bye week. They were awful against Texas. They were even worse last week against South Carolina. But I think they oversimplified on the offensive line because they did the slide protection. But and again, keep in mind, I was off the Seth Luttrell bandwagon. If you guys missed the last episode of the podcast, I was off the Seth Luttrell bandwagon after South Carolina. You've been off the Seth Luttrell bandwagon since, I don't know, Houston. But the point is, the play calls didn't match the protection last week. So simplify in a way is, if you're going to slide protect, run the play in that direction. Don't leave your quarterback out to dry with a tight end on a rushing defensive end. Be, like you said, be creative, but match your play to your protection. Simplify it in that area. And the reason I said, run a couple of times early in this podcast is because run blocking is the easiest thing to do. If you're an offensive line, the easiest thing you can do is run block. The most difficult thing you can do is pass block. And I believe you go back to the old fundamental, you run to pass, you run to pass. And so you've got a bruising back who seems to be healthy in Javonte Barnes. Use him, simplify it, and then take calculated shots downfield. But you bring it back Jackson Arnold as your quarterback. We talked after the Tennessee game. One of the things that I said is now that you've gone to Michael Hawkins, you can't really go back because you're going to divide the locker room. It's probably going to spell the end for Seth Luttrell. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, Michael Hawkins, for all the good that he's been with ball protection, he was just straight up awful at the face of that pressure from South Carolina last week. And turnovers on the first 3 offensive possessions lead to a 21-0 deficit. Here comes Jackson Arnold, who wasn't awful in this game. But now that you're with Jackson Arnold, I mean, I don't know what the magic formula is. You know, Jackson got benched. Michael came in. Michael got benched. Jackson came in. Does Jackson Arnold look over his shoulder the first time he makes a mistake?
I don't think so, just because Hawkins had the scoop and he fumbled the ball. South Carolina. So it started with the interception
Right.
that set the South Carolina up for an easy touchdown. Then had the scoop and score. Then had the pick six. And I'm pretty sure he still had one more drive after that, didn't he?
I think he was done after the pick six.
After the pick six. So I mean, he had 3 strikes. And I think, you know, Jackson Arnold's kind of at this point is okay, this team is bad. Everybody in that locker room knows it. So you can kind of play a little bit more loose. And I think I think this is kind of the game he can come out and kind of play looser because there's nothing to lose. You know, they lose this game. That's just it's a game that they're expected to lose. They're not, I mean, they're 20-point dogs. Everybody's counting them out already. So why try to have this pressure on your back when you don't need to?
Ole Miss defense is only allowing opponents to average just 2 yards per carry, 66.6 yards per game on the ground. They've only given up 1 rushing touchdown all season long. Pretty stingy against the pass as well. 222 yards per game, 5.98 yards per pass attempt, and five passing touchdowns. It's a defense that nationally ranks number 2, 10.6 points per game allowed. And they're the number 10th ranked offense at 41.4. How do you attack this defense? I think the first thing you have to do, and you mentioned this earlier, is you've got to get Jackson Arnold comfortable. You're not going to be able to win a game without passing the ball. So you've got to help him get a rhythm. So do you start that by taking shots 5 yards downfield? Do you start that by taking a shot on a flare to the running back? Do you start that by taking, just a screen to the receiver, right? High percentage passes to help him get to a rhythm?
Yeah, I think you start out this Ole Miss secondary is their big struggle on this defense. Like you said, if you look at, the way this defense has played throughout the season, they've been stopping the run. They've been stuffing the run. When you have a bad rushing offense against a good rush stop defense, you can't lean on that. So it's gonna be on Jackson Arnold's arm to really get us through this game. And I think the way you start is you start with some screen passes to some receivers, get Brendan Thompson in some space, and then you start progressing downfield to where they have to loosen up the run defense to where you can run the ball. And I think this is a game where if you look at the 2 losses, both quarterbacks I played against had close to had Brock Vandegrift had 243, and then the quarterback for LSU, blanking on his name, had over 300. So the way you win this game is throwing the ball a lot.
Mm.
The LSU quarterback threw it 51 times, and then Kentucky's quarterback Vandegrift threw it, just had it. Um, he threw it 28 times. So you're gonna have to throw the ball. This is, both those losses they had under 100 yards rushing given up. Ole Miss did. So this is not gonna be a ground and pound attack. It can't be a ground and pound attack. It has to be through the air. And the best way to do that is getting Jackson Arnold comfortable as quickly as possible.
Yeah, you just have to question after what we've seen since Tennessee, does Oklahoma have the receivers to do that? And that's where the big question mark comes from. For me, Ole Miss has 24 quarterback sacks on the season, 7 interceptions, 3 forced fumbles, is where they are in terms of what their defense is doing against opposing offenses. I want Jackson Arnold to find a rhythm. He's got to find a rhythm. But does he have that receiver? If you were, let's assume, because we were pretty confident Deion Burks was going to play last week. He didn't. Let's assume he's not going to play this week. What happens in terms of who's going to be that guy? Who's going to be the safety net, the guy that Jackson Arnold's going to look for? Give me your receiver right now that's going to be the guy that can stretch this defense.
I think it's gonna have to be Brennan Thompson. I think this is gonna have to be his big game. I know that they found each other deep at the end of that South Carolina game. But this is gonna have to be a game where he's leaned on. He's a speedster. I mean, it's not like he hasn't been getting open. He's been doing that all season. He's been torching opponents secondary. We just haven't been able to find him. We haven't been able to connect with him. And this is gonna be a game where those two have to be on the same page.
Yeah, I agree. And you think about the guys that we've seen, Jock Espedaway against Tennessee, of course, JJ Hester against Auburn. There's not been, since Deion Burks went out, there's not been that one guy who's emerged. And you feel like he has to. You feel like if you're going to have a puncher's chance in this game on the road, that someone has to emerge. Someone has to be the go-to guy that gets like 9 or 10 targets and catches 7 or 8 passes, a couple of touchdowns, puts them in field position, scoring position. You got to find that guy. But Caleb, I got to be honest with you. I'm looking through this and I'm seeing Bauer Sharp, big time drops last week. Brennan Thompson, yeah, he had the touchdown, but he only has 15 catches on the season. JJ Hester, you got mad at me, not mad at me, but you said it's being too harsh after the Auburn game when I was like, no, JJ Hester hasn't lived up to the hype at the University of Oklahoma. He's been a no-show since the Auburn game. It's just Jock Espedaway had the big play against Tennessee. Where has he been since then? There just isn't that guy. And man, that's a concern. I'll be honest, that is a concern that I have because you mentioned a guy, which I like it, but I don't know that I have a guy. I don't know if I can say this is the dude who's going to shine on Saturday at the receiver position.
Well, that's not fair. You didn't give me that option. You said pick a guy. So I picked a guy.
Well, no, you didn't. Look, I'm going to go Jacob Jordan. He was the most consistent receiver last week, but is that fair? Because the guy, caught 5 passes, but
6.
So it was 6 passes. Okay, he caught 6 passes. I don't know if you saw me peek over in your screen. I looked. I double checked you, but the point is this: is that the guy we want to go with? Because he was the hot guy last week. So does he? It's just every week, it's either no guy or a different guy. That's what I'm saying. I don't know who to pick. I'm glad you can pick one. I'm just saying, I don't know. I don't know if I can.
I'm there with you, but I just thought I had to pick a guy because you told me to pick a guy. I think I would have gone because, I've called out the past 3 games. I've called out a different receiver that I thought was going to make big plays, and they had been non-existent those next couple of games.
Yeah. Let's I mean, that's just the story of the season. I mean, since Deion Burks went down against Tennessee, that's been the story. Um, let's look at the key players for Oklahoma offensively. Call your game plan. Obviously, Jackson Arnold is not only is he key, but he can't turn the ball over. I mean, Jackson Arnold has to protect the football on Saturday. I saw a stat. I'm trying to look it up. When Oklahoma wins the, I'm just kind of going through my notes here, and I don't know where I put that. When Oklahoma, here it is. In Oklahoma's 4 wins this season, they've outscored opponents 56-6 off of turnovers. And their 3 losses this season, they have been outscored 41-0 off of turnovers. Jackson Arnold, I think, is where we start with the key players on the offensive side of the ball. And it's take care of the ball. Don't fumble it. Don't throw it to the enemy. Make good choices with the ball in your hand.
I'm 100% agree. This is going to be a big game for Jackson. He's going to have to prove to Oklahoma that this turnover bug's over, that he can protect the football. But, the players that I'm going to watch, I know I said this cannot be a ground attack, ground and pound attack, but I'm going to call out Javonte Barnes and Taylor Tatum because we're going to need big plays from our backfield. Mm-hmm. We're going to need big runs, and we're going to need them in the passing game. And I know that Oklahoma's 20-point dogs, but the way that this game's setting up, I feel like this could be a big trap game for Ole Miss. And the way that you go in on the road and get upset is you establish the run. And if they can do that, if they can control the game, they can slow down the pace of the game. This could be really big for this offense.
I agree with you, Caleb. I mean, that's my notes right here says Javonte Barnes, because I think Oklahoma has to run the ball. And the reason why I think Oklahoma has to run the ball is twofold. First, you've got to find balance. You have to have a balance in your offense. And you can't get balance, obviously, if you can't run the football. So you become, I've said this so many times. If you're listening to the podcast for a long time, you know what I'm about to say. Your offense is so much more dynamic and dangerous and hard to defend if it's balanced. If it's not balanced, it's so easy to pick apart. And that's what South Carolina did last week. That's what Texas did the week before. They're like, look, we know you can't run the football. We know you can't run. So we're just pinning our ears back, and we're coming every time. We're coming hard into the backfield every time. Because of that, Oklahoma has to run the football. They've got to find balance. But the other thing they have to do is they're facing an offense that averages 560 yards per game. 560 per game, 360 in the air, 200 on the ground. You've got to shorten this game. You've got to limit opportunities for the Ole Miss offense. And you do that, I believe, by running the football effectively. So because of that, I'm with you. I think Jackson Arnold runs the ball. I think Javonte Barnes runs the ball. I think Taylor Tatum runs the ball. They have to run the ball. And Javonte Barnes is right there in the sights as the key player to this game. Beyond that, go ahead.
Do you know who would be a great player to have running the ball
on Saturday for Oklahoma? A current player on the team or somebody who used to be there?
Someone who used to be there.
You're gonna give me Taway Walker?
I'm gonna give you Taway Walker.
Yeah. Well, he's not available because he and DeMarco Murray couldn't really see eye to eye on things. But
just saying, he would be a good one to have right about now.
The Oklahoma needs a tough between the tackles runner. I think Javonte Barnes is getting there. I think Taylor Tatum is getting there. Unfortunately, that's just not really been Gavin Sawchuk's game. And I know he got injured in pregame last week, but still, I mean, I kind of feel bad for the kid because he was the go-to guy last season. and it's just not been his year, which brings me to a question of maybe for another podcast. Who's here next season and who's not? Who are the top candidates to enter the transfer portal? That may be something that would be fun to think about for a new another podcast topic, another podcast idea. We've got other key players to talk about. Obviously, all the 5 guys up front. Is there anything, you played that position, you played that unit, you played multiple positions along the front line of the offense. A different guy making play calls. I mean, is there, like I said, they're running slide protect last week, but it didn't look like they were running the plays for slide protection, if that makes sense. Tell me how Oklahoma fans with a new play caller can have confidence, or at least a hope, that results in better offensive line play.
I think just because, like you said, the play calling and the blocking schemes have been just terrible. Go back to the Houston game where you pulled Joshua Bates. Bates was struggling all game, and you pulled him to try to go not take out the end, and that was just that play never had a chance. And you ran that play 2 to 3 times. If you want good, consistent blocking, if you want this offensive line to take steps to getting better, you have to give them confidence. And right now, the play calling and the just not helping this offensive line get confidence. I go back to that Texas game. There was a drive. I think it was after the second field goal. No, we missed the first field goal. We made the second one. We get the ball back. Oklahoma has 3 to 4 great runs in a row, and then you pass it 3 times and you punt the ball. You were leaning on this offensive line. The plays were being made, and then you just abandoned it. I get it. You can't just run it every single play, but to have 2 first downs off of 4 plays, which you've been struggling to get first downs, and then they go 3 straight pass plays, that's just what the play calling helped kill drives.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing Joe John is going to have to figure out is, okay, we're hot on the run right now. You got to because run blocking is hard. It's not the hardest, but you got to give these guys rest. Passing blocking kind of gives you a little more rest, but it is a little bit harder. But also you're going to start keying in on the run. But if the run is working, you can't just abandon it for 3 straight plays. You got to mix it in there, and that's where that balance has to be. And we have not seen the balance all season long.
Okay, talk a little bit more about that before we go into the break. You said pass blocking allows an lineman to get a little bit of rest. How does that happen?
So to where it's a good pass block should be about 3 to 5 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And then the play should be downfield. To where run block it's all downfield and it's opened up by the offensive line. Offensive lines were a little bit bigger boys. To where you are sprinting down, because I'm trying to think of the year it was, and I'm pretty sure it was Creed Humphrey. I think it was in the Bedlam game with Jalen Hurts. It was about a 40-yard touchdown run. And Creed Humphrey starts at the line, works up to the linebacker, and then he was a lead blocker going into the end zone.
Mm-hmm.
Now I get Creed is a different type of level player than anybody on this offensive line. But to where pass plays, the scheme is harder, but you don't have to give as much energy as a run block play.
As much continuous energy.
Yes, thank you.
No, I'm just clarifying because I want to make sure I'm understanding. I didn't, obviously, you look at my body, I never played offensive line. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just making sure I'm following what you're saying. Okay, so if you're looking at key players on the offense, I want to make sure I get you correct. We're both going Jackson Arnold. You're going Javante Barnes and then Brennan Thompson, right?
Taylor Tatum. I'd pick both. I just
Okay.
pick both running backs.
Okay. So I'm going to go same. I'm going to go Jackson Arnold. I'm going to just pick Javante Barnes. I mean, whatever you get out of Taylor Tatum, that's gravy. That's great. But I think Javante Barnes is going to get the bulk of the carries on Saturday. And I guess I do have to pick a pass catcher. So I'm a glutton for punishment. I hate myself at times. And so because of that reason, I'm going back to the well and I'm picking Bauer Sharp. And I don't know why. I don't know why I'm so in love with these tight ends because they are awful. I go to bat for them and then they just go out and they play their worst game of the season last Saturday. So maybe we get some redemption with Bauer Sharp and Jake Roberts on Saturday. So I'm going to go Bauer Sharp in the passing game. We've got more to talk about. We've got some defense facing a huge momentous challenge on the road Saturday. We've got over-under coming up where I'm asking Caleb the questions. And then we've got the SEC rundown, and then we're going to give you our score predictions for the Sooners and Ole Miss. Hang out with this. This is the Sooner Nation podcast. I think when you're breaking down Oklahoma and Ole Miss, one thing that's important to know is as highly as we think of the Rebels, there's only one game separation between the Sooners and Ole Miss. Ole Miss 5-2 on the season, Oklahoma 4-3. Ole Miss 1-2 in conference play, Oklahoma 1-3 in conference play. Now, again, the Sooners are a 20-point underdog, and rightfully so. But they're not a 20-point underdog because of the offense versus defense matchup in terms of Oklahoma's defense against the Ole Miss offense. Now, don't get me wrong. Oklahoma's defense has to play lights out. They have to be on top of their game. But we saw them really come out on fire and dominate at least for a quarter of the Texas offense. We saw them force turnovers against the Tennessee offense. Those are the two best offenses that they face this season. Caleb, is there a reason to believe that Oklahoma's defense cannot have success against the Ole Miss offense?
The only reason I have seen and that I kind of think has traction is this defense is just tired of what the offense is doing.
Mm-hmm.
They are constantly just being the better unit. They're getting the ball back. They're stopping the ball. And the Oklahoma offense is just hand picking, just handing the ball away.
Mm-hmm.
You go look at the South Carolina game. I know you really can't do it, but if you take away that first quarter, those 3 early turnovers, it's 14-9. Totally different ball game.
Right.
Same thing against Texas. It's that game gets out of hand after 2 turnovers from the Oklahoma offense. Go look at the Tennessee game. Oklahoma was put in position time and time again to be successful, but Oklahoma handed the ball over 2 times. The defense got turnovers, and then the next play, Oklahoma gave it right back 2 times. So there is a little bit of traction. I could see that this Oklahoma defense is just tired of being out there, tired of this offense. But from what we've heard from guys like Billy Bowman and Danny Stutzman, they're still locked in. They still want to be the best unit they can be. And that's why I think Oklahoma can have a fighting chance in this game if we can take care of the ball. I think this defense is going to come and play lights out. I think they're going to dominate, and they're going to look dominant through points of this game. But can this offense give them any breaks?
Ole Miss offense, we said this earlier. They ranked 4th nationally, 360 yards per game through the air, 26th nationally with 200 yards on the ground, number 10 in points scored, 41.4 points per game. when you're looking at attacking this Ole Miss offense, if you're Brent Venables and company, where do you go after? For me, it's you pressure, you win first down, you pressure the quarterback, and you take those gambles even to try to force turnovers. Those are my three keys. Win first down, come after the quarterback, and force the turnover. What else are you seeing? What else is out there to this game plan that maybe isn't really something we're talking about enough?
I think you got to make them one-dimensional. Jackson Dart is a very good quarterback, but we've seen in times where they're one-dimensional and he has to force throws, him not being the best.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's one thing Kentucky did. Kentucky stopped the run and made them pass. This is that Lane Kiffin's offense is a very fast-paced offense. So by forcing incomplete passes, the clock was stopped and Kentucky was able to control the clock. And I think that's exactly how Oklahoma's going to have to do. They're going to have to stop the run, force Jackson Dart to make plays, and can then, when we get the ball, control the clock. I think that's the blueprint to upsetting this game is stop the run, force those incompletions, force Jackson Dart to make mistakes, and then control the ball.
Yeah, Kentucky almost doubled up Ole Miss in time of possession in that game, 39.43, nearly 40 minutes to 20 minutes and 17 seconds for the Rebels. Something else that I think I would add to that is Kentucky dominated on third down. Ole Miss 1 for 10 on third down against Kentucky. You said that they limited the running game, which you're right. Ole Miss just 92 rushing yards in that game. They forced a turnover against the Rebels. But one thing I think also is you got to hope they self-destruct a little bit. Ole Miss with 8 penalties. They were flagged 8 times, 53 yards in that game. So all of that said, I mean, what is your confidence level that Oklahoma can do that? I feel pretty good about taking away the run. I still don't know how good I feel with Oklahoma's secondary against these athletic receivers that Ole Miss has.
I kind of agree with you. I think our defensive line is going to be dominant. It's going to be, you can't let Jackson Dart have all day to throw because Ole Miss, they're a very talented offense. So if he has time to sit back and pick you apart, he will. But if you make him frantic, if you put some pressure on him, make him do these quick throws, I think that's where you live and die by not allowing him to get those downfield shots.
Well, give me a couple of guys on the defensive side of the ball. Who are we looking at that they're going to be the key players for Oklahoma's defense on Saturday?
I'm going to go. I have 3. I feel like Grayson Holton is going to have this is going to be a good, this is a good fit for him. We're going to be able to stop the run. If we stop the run, he's going to be able to get in there on those third downs and be able to do that fast pass rusher. Same thing with R. Mason Thomas. Jackson Dart is a good runner, but he's not a kill you with his speed type of runner. So he's going to be able to crash down and be able to go after the quarterback. And then a kid that I've been high on for a while, Eli Bowen. And
I knew you were going to go with Eli Bowen. I should have written it down and showed you on the camera. Like, this is going to be Eli Bowen. It's going to be one of his guys.
And he's played amazing. He has been physical at times. He's probably been the most physical corner we've had. And so this is a game where he can really kind of prove to Sooner Nation he deserves to be out on that field. It's not like he hasn't already, but this is definitely can be a game where his name is called a lot.
I like it. I think you have to have somebody. I think you have to have somebody from that second level, because if you're going to make them one dimensional, that means somebody like a Kip Lewis or a Danny Stutzman, somebody in that linebacker core is going to have a big game as well, because that's what's going to help take away the run. You mentioned the rushers, and I don't have a problem with that, but it really, to take away the run, your linebackers have to be productive. And I think that's the only thing I would add to it is I think the cheetah position and the linebacker position, they're going to have to be pretty solid on Saturday for the Sooners. And so that I would just add that into the mix here. And something else to mention is, Jackson Dart has been sacked. I had to double check my stats there. He's been sacked 16 times this season. So it's not like they can't get to him, It's not like he sits behind a fortified wall. The 5-2, so they played 7 games, so a little more than 2 times a game on average he's getting sacked, and that's just what they're going to have to go after. I agree with you. You got to win the early downs to force them in 3rd and long so you can come after the quarterback. And then at that point, you've got to get to the quarterback. And then there was opportunities on Saturday for this defense to force turnovers. There was the one Oshimigo kind of went right through his hands. That should have been an easy interception, or a for sure interception that he let go. There was plays in the backfield. I can't remember exactly. I think it was Trace Ford who ran right by the quarterback, had a shot for a loss, a sack. And so you've got to capitalize on those opportunities when they come. But the reality is there will be plays to be made by this defense. And if you're going to add something else to this mix, is you've got to make those plays when that opportunity comes. If the ball hits you in your hands, we've said this multiple times on the season, you got to come away with it. If the ball hits the ground, you've got to be the guy who scoops it up. And if you have a shot at the quarterback, you cannot overrun and miss those shots. Take advantage of the opportunities while they're there, and that's how you keep Ole Miss on its heels. And if you add, it doesn't matter what offense it is, if you add pressure to that offense, you're sitting in pretty good shape if you're the defense.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. That's one thing we haven't really talked too much is this defense has had a lot of opportunities to look even better, and they've missed. They've missed just wide open sacks. They've over pursued. They've dropped a lot of interceptions. They've let 2 fumbles touch the ground, and both be recovered by the offense, one for a touchdown. Yes, this defense has played good, but they could play better. And if Oklahoma wants to come in and pull off an upset, this defense has to play their best game yet.
We've got one segment to go, the over-under. I'm asking the questions this week. We're going to give you the SEC rundown. There is a really big game in the SEC, a surprisingly big game in the SEC this weekend. And then obviously we're going to give you our score predictions for the Sooners and the Rebels. Hang out with us. This is the Sooner Nation podcast. All right, Caleb, it's over-under time. Here's what happens on this segment. I'm going to throw out a stat, and you're going to tell me whether this game is going to hit the over or the under on that stat. And you're going to tell me the reason why you're making that selection. So we're going to start with the big thing, Ole Miss offensive yards. We've talked about how many yards, 560, that they average on the season. Now, I'm bringing that down because I have respect for Oklahoma's defense. I'm bringing that down all the way to 450 total offensive yards for Ole Miss. And so my question is this, the first one on the over-under, 450 total offensive yards on Saturday. Will Ole Miss hit the over or the under on that?
I think under. You look at the Texas game where that was a Texas team that dominated offensively. You look at Ole Miss, not Ole Miss, sorry. Look at South Carolina, another big dominant performance from a team. Even Tennessee, all those games were under 450 yards. This defense, they know that they have to be the real deal in order for Oklahoma to win. And I do think that they come out and they play like that to prove that this defense, this might be a not so good Oklahoma team, but this is a really good Oklahoma defense.
Okay, that's fair. I'm with you on all of that. Let's go with the quarterback position for the Sooners. It started the season with Jackson Arnold, then they moved to Michael Hawkins. Now they're back to Jackson Arnold. Completion percentage on the day we talked about early in the podcast, him finding a rhythm. You talked about passing is the key to beating Ole Miss. Let's set the over under at 55% completion rate for Jackson Arnold. Would you take the over or the under?
I will I would take the over. I think Oklahoma's game plan should be keeping it short, simple passes, easy completions, just to keep
Mm-hmm.
that clock running. And I feel like that's a good way to hit that over is those short completions out quickly and allowing us to get a couple yards, keeping that clock rolling.
Okay, since we're talking about a Jackson Arnold, we have to talk turnovers. Let's set the turnover rate for Oklahoma at 1.5. 1.5 turnovers for the Sooners. Would you take the over or the under?
As a smart man, I would take the over, but as a hopeful Oklahoma fan, I'm going to take the under just because if Oklahoma's going to win this game, it has to be under.
Did you just politic your way out of answering that question straight up?
Yes.
And you also self-proclaimed as a smart man.
Yes.
Very
Hey,
nice.
I invented a new word on this podcast.
Did you?
So
I missed it. What was it?
it was a couple not this episode, but like
Gotcha. Yeah.
in this
Okay.
well, it wasn't this segment, it was the true or false, the
Yes,
trolls.
the Tross. Yes, you're right. You're right. My bad. You are a smart man. Let's stick with quarterback. This is kind of a fun one. All right. So pay attention here. Quarterbacks to play in the game. In the game. Total quarterbacks to play in this game. We're going to set the over under at 2.5. Would you take the over or the under in total quarterbacks to hit the field on Saturday in Oxford, Mississippi?
I will take the over, not because I think Jackson Arnold's going to be bad and need to be replaced, but I think we could see different packages with Hawkins out there,
Okay.
maybe to try to use his speed, maybe like a speed option, just using what his abilities are to kind of stretch the field. Also, I can see it to being a game where Ole Miss pulls Jackson Dart and they get a couple of quarterbacks in the game as well.
Some you talking about some garbage time stuff right there?
Yeah.
Ouch, that hurt that hurt to hear. Okay, one more question about the offense. I think I had 6 altogether for you today, which may be a record for us this season. We talked earlier in the podcast about the need for Oklahoma to establish a go-to guy at the receiver position. So Oklahoma's leading pass catcher on Saturday. Oklahoma's leading pass catcher. We're going to set the over under at 6 catches. Would you take the over or the under on that?
I'm gonna go over. Again, I think it's gonna be a lot of short, quick passes. I think someone's gonna get a lot of touches. I don't know who that would be. I think a realm of possibility would be Bauer Sharp, Brendan Thompson, and then Javante Barnes or Taylor Tatum out of the backfield.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I would go over.
So you're going to go over 6.
Yes.
Okay. So last one, we haven't really talked about the defense that much outside the first question. But Oklahoma's leading tackler on the season is Danny Stutzman. Had a monster game against South Carolina last week. Let's set the over and under for total tackles on the day for Danny Stutzman. Total tackles. That's a solo and assisted. Let's set it at 9. 9 total tackles for Danny Stutzman. Taking the over or the under?
Man, that's hard because he draws so much attention that when they do run it up the middle, when they do run it, that he's going to be double teamed.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen that almost every single SEC game, him having at least 2 guys attempting to block him. So I'm going to go under, not because he has a bad game, but just simply because the way that he impacts his game is by freeing up someone like Dominic Williams, Kobe McKenzie, Kip Lewis, whoever that may be, to be able to get to the ball carrier first.
All right. Well, that's it for this week's episode of the Over Under, I guess edition, not episode. I don't know, segment, whatever. Let's talk about the SEC rundown in general for Saturday. Obviously, Oklahoma, Ole Miss get things rolling in the conference at 11 a.m. Kickoff on ESPN. We'll give you our score predictions for that. Arkansas, Mississippi State, kind of a boo-boo game. Interesting, though, Missouri at Alabama. The Tigers kind of playing with fire the last couple of weeks, losing at A&M, just getting trounced, and then a close one last week with the comeback over Auburn. Now they're playing Bama at home. Alabama is 16.5-point favorite over the Tigers. What are you thinking on that one?
I think I would pick Alabama to cover.
Yeah, I don't know about covering, but I do think Alabama wins. Alabama seems to have more of the ability, which surprises me, to follow. I don't know. I just don't know why Auburn didn't run the ball more against Missouri. Why I didn't really get to pay a lot of attention to that game. I just don't understand why the Tigers didn't have more success on the ground. But kudos to you, my friend, because you did call that Auburn covering that point spread. Texas at Vanderbilt on Saturday. This is a 3:15 kickoff on the SEC network. Suddenly, this is a big game in the SEC. Both schools sitting at 2-1 in conference play. The former number 1 team in the country against the upstart number 25 team in the country. The Longhorns are 18.5-point favorites over the Commodores at home. Give me your thought on this.
I think Vandy will cover. I don't think that they're gonna pull off an upset like they did against Bama. I think Texas is too much of a well-rounded team.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing we've seen Vandy do past couple weeks is control the ball and control the ball very well. Um, they should have beat Missouri. That was a just terrible, terrible missed kick. They should have beat Missouri. I don't think they're going to beat Texas, but I definitely think they're going to play them close.
I agree with you. I think Texas, when you say close, I think Vandy covers the spread, but I think
Yes,
Texas wins by 2 touchdowns.
yeah. I mean, I think it's a lot closer than what the spread would be. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
I agree. I think 17 is a really good spot, a really good point spread for that game.
Auburn at Kentucky is the nightcap in the SEC, 6:45 kickoff. Tigers and Wildcats. We don't need to break this game down, but I'm just curious, is this the weekend where Auburn finally gets its first win in conference?
Man, I just don't know. You know, one thing Kentucky does very well is controlling the pace of the game. And you saw that, against Auburn against Missouri, where they just kind of let the pace of the game, even against Oklahoma,
Mm-hmm.
they didn't control the pace of the game and they ended up losing both those games, but they should not have lost. So I think with it being at Kentucky, I think Kentucky wins that one.
Okay, so the game of the week in the SEC, surprisingly, number 8 LSU versus number 14 Texas A&M. Both teams undefeated in conference play. Both teams 6-1 on the season. Aggies 2.5-point favorites at home. Give me a breakdown and a prediction on this game.
These are two teams that have totally surprised me.
Right.
I thought LSU would definitely be on a bounce back rebound year. I thought Texas A&M could kind of be a middle of the pack SEC team, but they have both just come out of the gate swinging.
Mm-hmm.
They have both looked good. I know LSU was preseason like 13, A&M is unranked, but they have both looked really, really good. And I do think that LSU has the better offense, So I think I would lean towards LSU for this game. Um, I think back to that great LSU Texas A&M game we got a couple of years ago where it was like 74-72
Right.
in 8 overtimes.
Something like that. Yeah.
Because of that game, they changed the rules of overtime. But I think this is going to be a fantastic game. Is this where game day's at? Do you know?
I couldn't tell you. I know it's an ABC game, so probably
I
ABC game 6:30 kickoff. I've been working out in the remote areas this week, so I haven't had a lot of time on that. So I couldn't really tell you where game day is.
but I think this is definitely going to be a game where a lot of eyes are on. But I think LSU kind of pulls this one out and kind of kind of submits their name as a sleeper pick for the SEC.
I'm with you. I think LSU wins this game by field goal. And I think it'll be a fun game to watch. All right, that brings us to what's the big one for us, for Oklahoma fans. Oklahoma, Ole Miss. Right now, ESPN Matchup Predictor has the Rebels with an 88% chance of winning this game. We let out the podcast saying that Oklahoma was a 20-point underdog. Over under this game is 48.5. It's go time, Caleb. Give me your score prediction.
I got 27-10 Ole Miss.
27-10 Ole Miss. So you've got them almost covering the 20-point spread.
Yeah, I don't think they recover that 20-point spread. I think they get a garbage time touchdown late in the game to kind of hit that 17 mark. But I think this is going to be a closer game until the end, and that's just I just have zero faith in this offense to do much outside of 10 points. I think 10 points might be a huge reach.
Well, they scored 9 last week, so I mean, okay. I'm gonna go crazy here, Caleb. I'm gonna go crazy. I'm gonna be the optimist. I don't think Oklahoma wins this game, but I think they played lights out, go toe-to-toe with Ole Miss. I say the Rebels win this thing 31-27. And I know that's an insane score for Oklahoma's offense after what they've done the last 2 weeks. And maybe I'm just an insane fan, but I think the Sooners come out of this game going, well, we lost, but we got identity and we maybe have some hope for the rest of the season. Because if this is a 27-10 final, like what you're saying, I think it's kind of the nail in the coffin in terms of a bowl game, because morale begins to fade because you can't do anything else. What you've done is you've changed the offensive coordinator, and that's pretty much all you can do to try to fix something. But if you go out and you win a close game that's determined by a mistake or a key play by a very talented Ole Miss offense, then you can say, you know what, we can go toe to toe. We can obviously beat Maine. We can take a run at Missouri. We can find bowl eligibility somewhere. And so I think the undertones of this game, like I said, the game itself, when I let off the podcast, the game itself takes a back seat to the side stories of, is Oklahoma's offense on the way to being fixed? I don't know that it gets fixed on Saturday, but it can at least be on the way to being fixed. And in the process, can you give me a defense or a special team score here and there to help me out? So I'm ever the optimist. I'm going 31-27 Rebels. Crazy? Am I too crazy?
27 points is absolutely crazy for this Oklahoma offense. You'd need 2 to 3 special teams to defensive touchdowns. But I like it. Keep it optimist. That was me at the beginning of the season. No more. They lost me. No more optimists. Not the next season. Next season I'll be back.
Well, we'll see what happens. Enjoy your weekend of college football, everybody. We'll be back on Sunday evening to break it down and tell you what we liked and what we hated. I feel like maybe there may be more than we hated than we liked if Caleb's score prediction comes true. This is the Sooner Nation podcast. Thanks for hanging out with us. Boomer Sooner, everybody.